Like many of you watching, I was joyful when Kyle Rittenhouse, the young man who got involved in an unfortunate altercation with people who were being aggressive towards him and trying to take his life, was acquitted of the murder charges that were pressed against him by the local authorities in his area. In fact, my history of tweets and commentaries, both in videos and in writing on this particular case, will show that I was elated. But I am not as happy as I was when he was acquitted as I am now that Mr. Rittenhouse is being paraded in front of audiences and college campuses across America to promote an agenda and to promote a philosophy that he does not have the tools to advance in a coherent and efficient fashion. What am I talking about? Well, my friends, Kyle Rittenhouse is currently on a campus speaking tour hosted by Turning Point USA, where he is going around on college campuses around the country talking about the issue of self-defense, talking about conservatism, and talking about other related topics within that entire realm. Now, Rittenhouse has been met with a fury of discontent and anger from a lot of the rabid leftists that happen to populate these universities, which are better called indoctrination factories in all honesty, because there is nothing universal or educational about them. They are limited and narrow, closed off parts of the country that are fundamentally disconnected from the reality of America. But that's a different story, different day. Look at my stuff on education and on how higher education itself is not a scam. It's something more insidious than that. All of those videos will be in the comment section down below. And so at the University of Memphis, which is one incident I want to actually highlight, Rittenhouse was met with a riotous mob that, amongst many other things, basically, and this is not admitted by the people that hosted Rittenhouse, but it's the case if you look at the evidence, chased him off the stage, flooded the campus with protesters who caused a massive police presence to be deployed to protect Rittenhouse. Well, during his event, before Rittenhouse was escorted off the stage, presumably due to safety reasons, he was asked a question about TPUSA's founder, Charlie Kirk. And particularly, he was asked a question by this activist student that said, "How can you defend Charlie Kirk? Do you believe he's racist?" So Rittenhouse responds, and I'll play the clip in a second, "How is Charlie Kirk racist?" And this student rattles off a bunch of different things to justify it. And Rittenhouse's response was less than sufficient, and actually wasn't sufficient. It was pretty bad. And it really demonstrates the entire flaw of his speaking and defending these ideas at such a not a young age, but in such a immature state intellectually. Allow me to show you this.
What racist things has Charlie Kirk said?
Okay, I'll answer the question of racist things he said. He says we shouldn't celebrate Juneteenth. We shouldn't celebrate Martin Luther King Day. We should be working those days. It's called the Tanya Brown Jackson and affirmative action hire. He's talked nonsense about George Floyd. And he said he'd be scared if a black pilot was on a plane. Does that not seem racist?
I don't know anything about that.
All right, now, if I was responding to that, I would have mentioned that this individual, the one that was speaking to Rittenhouse, is doing what we call Gish Galloping. They are adding in a bunch of unrelated things into a single statement that would require different ways to address them, and they're presenting them as if they are all one package. This is also called, by the way, package dealing, when you add in a bunch of unrelated ideas and you presume they are one thing and you present them as a one single continuous idea. Both of these approaches are pretty fallacious. Both of them are quite dangerous as well, as they muddle the waters between certain issues and they confuse the thinking of people. But also, both of these approaches are the mark of a dishonest actor whenever you hear them deployed by your interlocutor in a conversation. So, for example, being against Juneteenth, which was a holiday based off of a certain conception of the African American story in America is not racist. I would even dare say it is righteous to be against Juneteenth. It is righteous to be against any holiday built off of identity, because holidays should celebrate universal things. Holidays should celebrate the human condition themselves, something that we can all relate to, and not a constructed narrative around a particular event. Obviously, African Americans being freed from slavery is not only a righteous thing, it is the fulfillment of the American ethos that every man, by virtue of his existence, is endowed with natural rights, and those natural rights require the utmost obedience from both the government and private society. Those are things that we should celebrate. But Juneteenth has another agenda involved in that. Being against Black Lives Matter, as is also talked about, is not at all racist. In fact, I think it's actually righteous. I will keep using that word. It's righteous because Black Lives Matter, both organizationally and conceptually, is wrought with error. Organizationally, Black Lives Matter was an entire group based off of premises that were fundamentally injurious, not just to Americans in general, but especially to African Americans, built off of principles of radical feminism, of anti-family hatred and dogma, of sort of postmodern worldview, seeing the world, and especially seeing Black people through the prism of institutions in the society they live in, as opposed to seeing them as fully realized beings who have the ability of free will, seeing them as these sort of units of this deterministic line of existence, whereby they have no control over the systems of oppression that they interact with. They are simply victims and therefore need to be saved by the very system that oppresses them. This is the illogic of the Black Lives Matter movement. That, of course, conceptually it is flawed because it ties the moral value of someone to their race as opposed to their human being. So these are two objections that have nothing to do with being racist. And of course, there were other things that were mentioned. I'm not going to go through all of the minutiae. But anyway, all of the things I just said to you to object to this individual's words, these individuals' leading questions, these are not only basic things, these are tools that every person on the right should have themselves equipped with when going into the heated battlegrounds of the culture war. And yet Kyle Rittenhouse, unfortunately, does not have these tools. Now let me stop before I continue. I am not condemning Kyle. In fact, I admire Kyle. It takes a lot of bravery to do what he did. I admire that he likes his country, he cares about his community, and he was willing to take matters into his own hand to defend himself, however tragic it may have been in the terms of how it turned out, against people who sought to do him harm. I think he is a good person. But if you're going to create, and this is a broader problem of politics, if you're going to have someone be an ambassador for your ideas, they must not only embody the ideas, which Rittenhouse has down pat, he embodies the ideas surely, they must also be able to articulate and defend the ideas in a way that goes beyond surface level talking points, in a way that is absent of vain rhetoric, and that fulfills the essence of the substance needed to make a good argument. Kyle in his young state just doesn't know that much yet. There's nothing wrong with that. When I was Kyle's age, I didn't know that much yet. I began speaking and doing YouTube around 4 years ago. I'm going to be 24 in May. I was 20 when I started doing YouTube. And so when I was 20, I was not able to speak about topics that I can speak about right now because I only knew so much at 20. But the topics that I did know at age 20, I drilled down on, I honed in on them, and I made sure that I was not one of the best, but one of the most informed people as far as a self-educated person can be informed on that topic. 4 years later, I know much more than I did when I was younger, and I can now speak more effectively to several different topics so that not only am I not pigeonholed, but I'm more dynamic as a thinker. The more information you open yourself up to, the more competent you will be at being able to debate and hold points on several different topics. Your neural pathways will be activated, and you'll achieve a certain level of clarity you didn't have before. But Rittenhouse is young, and he doesn't have the information yet needed. And he is more insidiously being used as a mascot, being used almost as a pawn by particular people that want to, quote unquote, own the libs, that want to push a certain narrative without the consequences being considered of what it could do to impact him as a person, what it could do to impact a future career for him in this space, talking about these issues, and also, most importantly, what it could do to impact the perception of people who hold certain positions. Indeed, there is a problem within our politics of what I call, and I have called in this channel historically, proximity ethics. And proximity ethics is simply when you make an assertion about a particular topic, not based on the merits or the substance of that topic, but based solely on what that topic is close to. Unfortunately, even though this is a very tormented way of thinking, and it leads you to nowhere productive or good, this is still how a lot of people perceive politics. They will associate political parties with figures in those parties, as opposed to associating political parties with the ideas or the ideologies that lie within the parties. So, likewise, they will associate oftentimes the Second Amendment movement and the gun rights movement with the NRA, despite the fact that the NRA is simply one organization in a sea of other organizations that do much better job representing the pro-Second Amendment worldview. And yet people will automatically associate those who defend firearms with lobbying groups, because that is simply how our modern political culture works, by association and proximity, not by rational thought and substance. And so Rittenhouse is in an even more delicate position here, because Rittenhouse is expected to represent the Second Amendment worldview, to represent a certain kind of strain of Americanism that says that not only do we have the right to defend ourselves, we have the right to defend others as well from the tyranny of those who would seek to inflict their authoritarianism upon us. So now when Rittenhouse goes out and speaks, he is being subconsciously associated by certain people in the population with that whole position. And if he doesn't do a good job, all of a sudden, people will use that as an argument to dismiss the proposition as a whole. Obviously, this is a flawed way of thinking, but this is simply how a lot of people, a lot of simple minds apprehend politics and apprehend issues in our culture and issues in society. My friends, we have to be very clear here. It is better to awaken lions in the hearts of men and to create philosophically astute minds, as opposed to crafting and presenting forth mascots to represent the weakest positions within the philosophies of our worldview on the American right. It is better to encourage people to learn, study, reflect, and then use the product of their learning and their study and their reflection to help others do the same thing, as opposed to simply having talking points to own your opposing political faction. Whether it's David Hogg or Emma Gonzalez, both of whom I believe are actually bad actors compared to Rittenhouse. He's simply a kid who fell into the wrong thing, wrong time. Those two are just propagandists. Whether it be, regardless of what it is, there is something about the youth that the political elite like to leverage in their agenda. And we have to be careful that we who are pro-America, we who want to have a better country, and we who believe in the moral truths of the founding and the constitutional ethos of our country do not fall into the trap of political strategy and lose sight of moral correctness in our politics. The moment we lose sight of our guiding first principles is the moment we become warriors fighting an endless rat race game of victories and one-ups, and we actually miss the point of what our politics was constructed to be, a means of ensuring there is a political order to safeguard Americans in pursuit of their private activities and in pursuit of social flourishing. Unfortunately, politics has fallen quite far away from that original pursuit. The culture war, my friends, will not be won in the long run by talking points or ballasts or boilerplate ideas. It will be won by philosophically astute minds, not mascots who are puffed up and put up by the ones who can influence the political discourse through so many different means. In my opinion, TPUSA should try a different approach with this. I think that Kyle can become a very good voice for these values that many of us hold. He can become an effective communicator of the virtues of the Second Amendment. He can. He has the potential. But right now, he needs to study, reflect, and learn, and not be thrown to the wolves for the enjoyment of those who see politics as one bloody sport. No. We need to change our perception, because our perception changing will then lead ultimately to our country changing for the better. My friends, like, share, comment, subscribe. Do all that good stuff if you can. I would appreciate it. Help me make this channel successful. If you have a friend that might be blessed by this wisdom or blessed by these words, please give it to them. Send this video to them as well. If you want to donate to me or you want to join my locals community, you can donate to me, PayPal, Patreon, locals as well, which is the platform I prefer people donate to me on. You can join that in the comment section down below as well. You can join our Discord to talk to me and others in my community about various issues if you wish, or to debate philosophy or whatever. I want to create an incubation space for the revolution of the mind. The pro-America 1776 mentality must return, and I hope to be one of the many voices leading us towards that Shangri-La. My friends, study history, study philosophy, remain morally convicted, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.